All right, and now we get to the main event of the evening in the UFC's bantamweight division. You have the number 2 ranked former interim and undisputed UFC bantamweight champion in the 16-4 Pelter No Mercy Jan going up against the number 3 ranked training partner of the current UFC bantamweight champion in Aljamain Sterling, the grappling heavy forward pressure cardio machine with all puns intended in the Georgian Merab the Machine Dvalishvili. So we have Peter Yan versus Dvalishvili for the UFC bantamweight division in a 5-round main event. This is a fantastic fight, man. This is a very interesting matchup, and this is a hard fight for Peter Yan. I know you guys are going to think that because I'm a huge Peter Yan fan, because I've always been a fan of Peter Yan, because I've always sang his praises, because I've never picked against him yet, that Peter Yan is 100% going to dominate Merab. He's going to put him away. He's going to finish him. Merab has no shot. Nah, man, I'm here to break down these fights being as impartial as I can. Even though I do have my favorites, I'm not going to lie to you. Breaking down the fight from a technical standpoint, Merab definitely has a shot. We'll look at the stats real quick before I break down the technical side of the fight. 5'7" is the height for Peter Yan, 5'6" for Merab Dvalishvili, so 1-inch height advantage, and it's going to be a 1-inch reach advantage for Merab Dvalishvili, but Peter Yan will be able to use his reach better than Merab in this fight, having a 67-inch reach. So the reach advantage, even though it's on the side of Merab, I feel like it's more going to be a reach advantage for the former champion in Pelter Yan, or Peter Yan, however you want to say it. Leg reach is identical at 38 inches. You look at the win percentages, it's 44% of the wins come by way of KO, TKO, 6% of the wins by way of submission, and 50% of the wins come by way of decision for Peter Yan, so 50-50 with decisions and finishes. And then on the side of Merab Dvalishvili, 71% of his wins come by way of decision to a 29% finish rate. So average fight time for both men, Peter Yan has the more experience in the cage, but it's not by that much. 16 minutes and 6 seconds average fight time for the former champion in Yan to 14 minutes and 27 seconds for Merab the Machine Dvalishvili. I think the biggest difference you're going to see here is in the grappling aspect of the fight. Peter Yan lands about 1.86 takedowns per 15-minute fight. And, Merab is like triple that. He lands 6.54 takedowns per 15-minute fight. So you're having about 2 takedowns compared to 7. So 5 more takedowns landed per a 15-minute fight for the Machine. I mean, they call him the Machine for a reason. It's forward pressure. It's good right hands, good 1-2s. He has a really solid right hand, and I think it's a lot better than people expect. It's straight. It's clean. He gets off on the angle. The 1-2 is very solid for Merab. When it comes to his best shots on the feet, the right hand is the best strike that he throws, and he uses it to set up the entries to land those takedowns, get his head on the inside, get to the double leg, work the single leg takedowns, work up to the body lock, push you up against the cage with the head on the inside single. He's very good at using the right hand to close the distance and set up his takedown entries. Out of those 6.54 takedown averages, he has about a 40% takedown accuracy rate. Yan is actually more effective with the takedowns that he gets, but he's more of a stepping from orthodox to southpaw, stepping around the lead leg of the orthodox fighter and landing the outside trip takedowns, kind of like what Rose Namajunas did to secure her title victory against Zhang Weili and Joanna Jędrzejczyk in both of those rematches. The stepping around the outside of the lead left leg of the orthodox fighter with that stance switch to southpaw. Yan's very good at landing those takedowns. He landed them a lot, I believe, against Douglas Silva de Andrade and a few of his other fights, but he's also good at catching the kicks and dumping you, working from the body lock and getting trips like we saw in the first fight against Aljamain Sterling. He was able to take Aljamain down a lot, and Yan has really solid takedown defense. I know he got taken down by Aljamain in the rematch early. He got taken down, got his back taken, slipped up, gave up his back, and was able to have, the human backpack him for, the remainder of the second and the third round. So 90% takedown defense rate for Peter Yan to a 78% takedown defense rate on the side of Merab Dvalishvili. I don't necessarily think we'll see Peter Yan instill any takedowns of his own unless he's really able to tire out Merab in the championship rounds, in the 4th and the 5th round, which the 4th and the 5th round are going to heavily favor Peter Yan in this fight. But with the cardio, forward pressure, and wrestling ability of Merab, he might be able to tire Yan out more than any fighter has in the fights that Yan has competed in inside the UFC. Submission average, pretty close, 0.17 for Peter Yan to 0.31 for Merab. Merab is more of a forward pressure, get in your face, take you down, and break you. Peter Yan gets in your face as well, but he's more of a counter pressure fighter. Like, he'll forward pressure you to get you to do the things that you don't want to do and leave yourself open and you know, highlight the defensive inconsistencies that you have in the striking on the feet, make you panic wrestle, make you panic shoot, and then he'll open up with his striking game. The right hook from southpaw into the right body kick, the 1-2, the uppercut up the middle. He's very good left hook, right uppercut. You know, slip uppercuts up the middle, getting in the clinch, landing the uppercuts, landing the elbows off the break in the clinches like we've seen against Uriah Faber. Landing the kicks to the body are very good. The high kicks, the low kicks, the 1-2, switch southpaw to land the straight left hand. He has one of the best stance switch combinations that I've ever seen in mixed martial arts. The 1-2 in orthodox, stepping into southpaw to get that outside foot on the orthodox fighter to land that straight left hand down the middle. He landed it a lot against Uriah Faber. He landed it against Corey Sandhagen. He landed it against Aljamain Sterling. He's very good at using the long guard. He uses that lead hand to kind of measure the distance and be able to find his way into range with his striking game. He wants to keep you at that distance, measure you with the lead hand, and then open you up for counters. He'll measure you, you step in, boom, right uppercut up the middle. He'll measure you, right hand, left hook, double jab, right hand. He'll measure you, right hand, left hook to the body, left hook up top. He's very good at cover counters as well. That's a big area of Peter Yan's game that I think people overlook because of how sharp he is with his boxing and his kicking ability on the feet. Yan is one of the sharpest strikers in the UFC. I also believe he's the best bantamweight in the world, even though he has a lot of losses recently. A lot of them were questionable. I thought he won 2 rounds out of 3 against Sean O'Malley and should have won that decision, especially with his wrestling, with his takedowns, you know, with his top control, and not getting knocked down in that fight, even though I believe they might have credited Sean O'Malley with 1 knockdown. Like, the fight was close when I went back and watched it on a rewatch, but I believe he won that fight against Sean O'Malley, even though it was close and O'Malley showed up and did some very good work in that fight. I think Yan won that fight. I think that Yan won the second fight against Aljamain Sterling. Now, that was close. I'm not going to sit here and say it was a robbery that Aljamain won, but he clearly lost the 4th and the 5th rounds, and I think Yan could have won the first round. Like, it was very close, but especially the championship rounds, I mean, he wasn't able to get the takedowns. Yan was able to spin and take the back of Aljamain and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, a lot of these fights that Yan loses, he lost the first fight to Aljamain via disqualification with a knee to the grounded opponent. Obviously, we all know that. One of the fights he had against Nurmagomedov, one of the fights he lost back at ACB, I believe, was a split decision where a lot of people thought that Peter Yan won that fight. So a lot of the fights that Peter Yan loses are fights that people believe that he wins, but he leaves it in the judge's hands. But this is the difference. With that O'Malley fight, it was a 3-rounder. If the O'Malley fight was a 5-rounder, I believe Peter Yan would have won. Now, coulda, woulda, shoulda, it wasn't, so it doesn't matter. But a 5-round fight against Merab Dvalishvili, even though Merab has the wrestling advantage, even though Merab has the cardio, the relentless pressure, the forward pressure, and we've seen Yan struggle with heavy wrestlers like Aljamain Sterling. He struggled with the jiu-jitsu of Aljamain Sterling and not the takedowns of Aljamain Sterling. And that's where people seem to find some, you know, inaccurate facts. Oh my God, I can't talk today. Like, people are thinking that Aljamain, just because Aljamain took the back of Peter Yan and rode him out and ground and pounded him and locked him in the body triangle and out grappled him, that Merab's going to be able to do the same thing. No, Merab's not a jiu-jitsu artist. Merab, I'm sure, does have submissions. I'm sure he can grab the neck of Peter Yan if he gives it to him. I'm sure he can take the back of Peter Yan. But with Merab, it's forward pressure, it's takedown entries, it's head on the inside single entries up against the cage, it's pushing Yan up against the cage and tiring him out, it's entering on strikes and pushing the opponent up against the cage, it's getting those takedowns and working ground and pound from the top. The one thing I will say is that I think Merab has more vicious ground and pound than Aljamain Sterling. You saw the ground and pound he was able to land after surviving huge knockdowns against Marlon Moraes, and he was able to overwhelm him, take him down, land vicious elbows, hammer hammer fist, elbows, hammer fist, basically knocking him out at the end of the first round, coming back in the second round, landing a right hand, using that to enter into a takedown, jumping on him and just putting him away with heavy ground and pound. Merab has very, very heavy ground and pound, and that is something that people are going to have to look out for, because if he's able to get those takedowns on Jan, and Jan can't work his way back up to the feet over and over and over again, eventually Merab will land that big ground and pound strike. He will be relentless on the top. And I don't know if Jan can survive the ground and pound of Merab Dvalishvili. It's just, can Merab get Jan to that position with the stellar takedown defense that we know Jan to have, and the ability for him to download the data of his opponents to make adjustments mid-fight. I think Jan is one of the best fighters at making mid-fight adjustments and changing his game plan in order to find ways to win against his opponents. And I think that's going to be what we're going to see here against Merab. I think Merab will probably win the first round. He'll push Jan back, get him against the cage, probably land some good strikes. I think Merab will most definitely win the first round. I think he might win the second round. I know he's got cardio, so the cardio is going to be an issue, because if Merab can keep up his pace for 25 minutes over the entirety of the fight, then he'll win. You know, he will beat Jan. But I think eventually Jan's going to make the adjustments. It's going to be very hard for Merab to get those takedowns, and Merab doesn't have the jiu-jitsu that Aljamain Sterling has, which is going to lead to the control time on the floor. I know that he has the ability to get in on the hips, push Jan up against the cage, land strikes in the clinch, head on the inside single in the clinch, inside and outside trips, taking him down against the cage, holding him against the cage. He's going to have that ability, but he's not going to have the ability to control Peter Yan once the fight hits the mat. That is the difference between Merab's style of grappling and wrestling and the more grappling heavy jiu-jitsu game of Aljamain Sterling paired with the wrestling that he has. Merab is a better wrestler. He's a better traditional amateur style wrestler than Aljamain Sterling. But Aljamain Sterling is a better positional grappler and submission artist. And position over submission and the ability to control Peter Yan once it hits the mat is what makes the difference. And I don't think Merab has the ability to control Yan, even if he does get those takedowns. Jan's able to work back up to the feet. Jan's takedown defense is second to none. Even some of the takedowns that Aljamain got on Peter Yan, it was because Yan was like knocked himself off balance and gave Aljamain an opportunity to jump on him and take the back. There's a difference between that and Merab, because Merab can jump on and take the back, but he's not going to be able to hold the back position like Aljamain did against Yan. And that's the big difference here, because I think early the fight will be going towards the way of the machine. I think he'll probably win the first round, push Yan back. Yan usually takes the first round and a half off. And if this was a 3-round fight, 100% go with Merab, because I think he wins a 3-rounder, but it's not. This is a 5-round fight. And the 5-round fights are where Peter Yan is at his most dangerous. He's at his most cerebral. He's at his most technical. And he's going to be the best he's ever been in a 25-minute fight. I feel like Peter Yan was built for a 25-minute fight. And in the end of the 3rd round, in the 4th round, in the 5th round, I think Peter Yan's going to make those adjustments. Start to land those body kicks behind the same side hooks. Start to land the 1-2. Start to land the 1-2 switch stance left straight. Start to work those angles. Start to be able to measure the distance against Merab. Time the takedown attempts with uppercuts, knees, working trips of his own. We saw him time a takedown attempt on Aljamain with a knee to the body and then work an outside trip off of that knee. Yan has extreme explosiveness. He has such good reaction timing, and he's so fast with being able to transition between the striking and the grappling and the striking mid-combination, especially in the clinch, that I think it's going to be a nightmare for Merab when we get to the championship round. I think we're going to get a late finish from the former champion in Peter Yan here. I could see a decision, but I think eventually the striking, the knees to the body, probably knees to the head, the elbows off the break in the clinch, the 1-2s, the slick boxing of Peter Yan, who, like I said, is a master of sport in boxing in Russia. He's one of the most technical strikers in the entire game of mixed martial arts. He's one of the most well-rounded fighters in all of mixed martial arts, and I think he's just a little bit outmatched. He's just a little bit of an overstep for Merab. I think Merab's outmatched here in terms of overall mixed martial arts game. even though he has the wrestling, even though he has the cardio, which could work for him if he's able to control Jan with the wrestling. But he doesn't have the jiu-jitsu ability and the positional awareness, I believe, to be able to control a guy like Peter Yan for the entire 25 minutes. And once Jan is able to get to the positions he wants to get to, once Jan is able to land those combinations, the switch stance combos, the kicks to the body, the 1-2 head kicks, the right hook to the straight left, to the right hook to the body, the cover counters, covering the big shots of Merab and countering with hooks on the same side, covering the body shots and coming up the middle with uppercuts, landing knees as Merab tries to close the distance. I think he's going to have to be a little bit more choosy and picky with the way he sets up his kicks because he doesn't want Merab to catch him and work his takedowns. So we're going to see a lot of feints, a lot of stance switches, probably a lot of feinting the knee to step to the outside of the foot, the hook, and then the body kick when you're off on that outside foot angle. We're going to see a lot of fakes and feints from Jan, which are going to draw out the reactions of Merab and also make it his shots a little bit more telegraphed, kind of like what we saw in the championship rounds of the second fight with Aljamain Sterling and in the first fight against Aljamain, making him shoot out of panic. And I think that's what we're going to see. And Merab is going to get pieced up in those championship rounds, caught with big boxing combinations, big knees, big punch kick combinations, and eventually I think Peter Yan's going to put him away. So my pick is going to be the number 2 ranked Peter No Mercy Yan, or Pelter No Mercy Yan, to defeat the number 3 ranked Merab Dvalishvili via a late 4th round TKO. It's going to be similar to the Aldo fight, but more in the wrestling aspect of Merab, just eventually walking into shots, overcommitting, telegraphing his takedowns, panic shooting, and eventually just getting pieced up and put away. I'm telling you what, I know that the more powerful and explosive striker is probably Marlon Moraes than Peter Yan, but the more overall well-rounded striker, the more dangerous fighter for 25 minutes, a guy who has the gas tank to push to 25 minutes and pair it up with the striking and the overall more well-rounded game, and who doesn't have the chin issues of Marlon. Jan is a nightmare matchup for Merab, and I also think Merab is a nightmare matchup for Jan if he's able to instill the game plan that he comes into the fight with. But with that lack of jiu-jitsu capability, or at least a jiu-jitsu capability that we haven't seen pulled out of the pocket of the machine yet, I don't think he gets the job done. So the number 2 ranked Peter No Mercy Yan to defeat Merab Dvalishvili via 4th round TKO. When it comes to the betting, I like Peter Yan on the money line, even though he's at like minus 255. I love Yan here. If you like Merab, go ahead and take him, but I think Peter Yan wins this fight. I like Peter Yan here. You're going to look at his record, but a lot of those losses are questionable. So Yan is a good bet on the money line at minus 250 if you're going to parlay him. If you're not going to parlay him, then I would actually take the either double chance method of victory with Yan via knockout, TKO, or decision, or you take Peter Yan via knockout, which I think might be at a plus 250. Let me see. It's going to be here somewhere. Peter Yan to win by knockout is plus 250. I was right. So I like Yan by KO TKO at plus 250, and I like Peter Yan on the money line at minus 255. But the pick is No Mercy, Piotr Yan to win via 4th round TKO over Merab the Machine Dvalishvili.